of July. Okay. Very simple. Got to give some Karis's family and
In Payson?
what's that?
You said in Payson. Well, that's cool.
Neighbor downstairs moving, so helped her. We even helped her this morning move, and she's vacating, which is hoping someone else good for example, because she thinks it's been great.
Oh.
We live in a unit where we're on the upstairs and on the downstairs. They were so quiet all the time. They said we were good too, but all right, man, what you got according to the agenda for today?
Oh, let's see. Well, we got the project tracker here. All kinds of stuff going on. Shrunk down here.
Throw it on the screen if you would. Hit the right button this time. Just walk me through it.
Come on. There we go.
Okay, so I'm going over the projects, each project on your tracker. Some of the focuses that I have mostly and ought to always be top of the line for you is timelines, deadlines, next steps,
Yep.
and then of course any issues that might cause yellows or reds.
Sure.
So what you got?
So coaching for success, right on target for that. Got all the information from Marissa Cochran, and just getting that all typed up and ready to launch over to John.
What'd she send you?
Sent information as to costs for facilitator materials kit, cost for them to come teach, cost for certification.
Sweet.
And so I've got that all.
Did she send that in like a brochure type thing, or did she just?
Sent it in kind of a standardized email that she sends out to everybody that calls in to her. And then she's got links in there with descriptions of classes, of mediums that each class is taught in, available in. She's got also a link to information about certification as far as what's involved in the first, second, and third day, and all the costs that's relevant to that.
Okay. Cool.
And so just putting that all together in a concise form for John. And then Honey Badger, we're on schedule for today. We're going to do some videoing of the filler setup station of Honey Badger. Doing that this afternoon.
How you shoot video?
Martin's going to help us.
Okay.
That's it. That's this afternoon. Had that scheduled for Friday, but talked with Martin. He said he's got a window today that's free, and it's so we're gonna beat the deadline on that, the date line on that, and get that worked up. Jason Stoffer is the one helping us with that. He's the subject matter expert.
The deadline on that one, 7/22.
7/28.
I'm looking at the last column I.
Oh. Dates and next steps. Yeah, I don't know why I got 22 there.
Well, so what you're doing good in next steps is, dates. What's good is, this is, if I recall correctly, the first forecasting of dates, which is great. And so your deadlines in column I is the end all. Now, of course, you told me last week, Kendall and Rudy hadn't wanted to establish one, so there wasn't one established. Cool. So you could do a phased approach. Say, okay, for this part, okay, we're going to do video now. So video, here's all the steps, here's the process. When's that going to be done? Because then, at least for that phase, that section of the project, by this date, before this date, from now till then, I'm going to be working on this much in this project, that project, whatever. And if that's all you've got as far as deadline stuff, then that's a management of time on project too.
Right.
So then, you could say, hey guys, we have a deadline for video and stuff, which is good. And I'm always juggling my time just like you guys are. After the video, I'm kind of in limbo as to what my availability is going to be for you on this project, while other projects are clamoring for my time, just like we talked about last time and before. So that's what you have to manage for you to make sure you're successful in delivering with them. And that works. You'll just need to do that. That's the purpose of column I. So be certain you know what's in there and why.
Yeah.
And chop it up if you need to. On projects now if you're chopping up a project that has an ultimate delivery date, okay, chop up is in the next steps. Ultimate delivery date would be in column I. And column I on this Honey Badger, just keep that note in there. This due date for, say, if it is, say, the 28th of July for the video. For video. Now, what's the next phases? In your description, you might want to throw in there, we're going to do a video, we're then going to do the e-learning module, they also want some participant guides, whatever else is in there. Say, so there's phase or milestone, if you want to call it whatever, 1, 2, and 3. So in your deadline deliverable, you'd say July 28th, video, item or phase 1. And that way you, me, anybody would be clued in to say, oh, that's not the whole daggone project. And you don't get caught up in the rush of things if you're talking to Kendall or Rudy or both and say, yeah, we'll have, if it comes out once, they latch, they being the customer. Yeah, we'll have that done on July 28th. Oh, shoot, you should have everything done on July 28th. And they say, I got the video done for July 28th. Guys, for the next 2 steps though, I need to get time allotted for you. And if that doesn't work for you, then okay, just please understand and be flexible. I may not be as readily available for when you guys are ready to go. I got competing projects. This is a biggie for everything you and I have been talking about for the last few weeks on time and project management. for your success and to be successful for them. And meet customers.
Right. Okay. And kind of broke things down as well with project management. I just met with Kathy and Ryan this morning. We discussed the content a little bit more as far as she's got more of the content in regards to responsibilities and duties of various people in the formulations department, whereas Kyle has information in regards to processes in the formulations department. And so met with Ryan and Kathy this morning, July 6th. Then scheduled I gave them this date list, this calendar schedule, and they really liked it, and so I'm going to send it over to Kyle as well and propose to him that to meet with his specialists in their areas and give so that they can help with them kind of a high level content for their areas that they're going to cover. And so that we're looking by Friday he'll meet with them, talk with them about that, and then we'll get all the information back from Kathy for her content, and from Kyle for the formulations content in the areas by 7:14, and then by 7:19 I'll have a storyboard put together. 7:21 I'll give them the opportunity to give any other suggestions as to what they want included, and then deliver the interactive module by August 4th.
From the 19th to the 21st, are those guys in agreement and on board with that timeline? For an example, or is that just your timeline?
Ryan and Kathy like that, and I still need to send this to Kyle.
Cool. Good.
But they gave their okay this morning.
Okay. So just so you know, I asked that purposely just to see how are you establishing timelines? Are you getting the buy-in with the stakeholders, subject matter experts, whatever? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Because we can make deadlines, but if people are on board, then it doesn't work. If you would go to Honey Badger on the deadline delivered, just so you don't forget, you may want to, well, you already did it, sorry, 7:28. So, interactive video completion, okay, cool. Yeah, you did it.
Okay.
For some reason I thought that date still needed to change.
So just barely met with those guys for project management, and then designing the graphic for the alternate homepage. That's been started. That's pretty much 80% complete. I'll get that done well before 6:30. That's supposed to be 7:30. Wait a minute. Where are we at here? Oh, okay. On 6:30, I started the graphic, and that'll be done well before the 13th.
What new graphic is needed?
That's for the alternate home page L&D link to the L&D site.
Oh, this is for the alternate homepage, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And okay, and then
when will
the July update for the L&D site.
1 second, stay on that graphic thing for a minute with me. So it'll be done by July 13th. What's your next step? Start a new graphic will be sending to James. When do you think it'll be done and sent to James? To help ensure that he has ample time to get things squared away, deal with any potential issues like the size isn't right, or hey, this doesn't coincide well, whatever. What's your plan on that? Because I see 1.5 hours last 2 weeks ago, 1.5 this week. What's your next step to ensure the July 13th, and how much time do you estimate will be needed? Because you've had your hands in the graphic a little bit,
Yeah.
you may have an idea of, I need about this much more time to get it done, so I can get it to James by this time, and he'll need to have much time. But if you say, well, before July 13th, great. So this is just a good example of managing the time and forecasting to make sure you meet a deadline with ample time.
Right. So by Monday, I'll send that to James.
Monday is the 11th.
Okay.
Okay. And then when you do, ask him, say, hey, how long, and you may already know, how long do you think it'll take with everything else on your plate? That's how I would say it. Everything else on your plate, when do you think this will be up and on the next side? That way, shoot. Because look, that's going up to him on the 11th, which gives him 2, maybe 3 days, depending on if you send it, Monday the 11th in the morning. Who knows when he sees it? You might want to give him in managing stuff, and this is a small example. It's not like a big project with big things, but you know how sometimes people can go a whole day without even checking their email.
Oh yeah.
If you send an email today saying, hey, I plan on sending you this graphic on the 11th, Monday, how long do you think it'll take you to have it up? Would it be up by that same day, the next day? What? Because if you can imagine, if, for example, like with the managers meeting, Dr. Dan and all the folks, if we wanted to showcase this, if you could put yourself in my shoes and share the load, it's, all right, if July 14th, if the 13th is the day we want to pop it up in front of everybody on the screen. Or to be able to stand up and say, you've probably seen by now, those of you who've visited the Ultranet homepage, you may have seen our icon right there. Just trying to make it easier for you guys, awareness, marketing, go to our site, see what kind of training we want. If we were going to shoot for something like that, which in this case we aren't, but sooner than later. In fact, the idea in my mind was, hey, let's have this up before the next classes, Ultranet class, or Leadership Institute classes. And this is actually, the 13th is, depending on when it's up, well, even if it's up the morning of the 13th, that's pretty much after this next class. Because we have classes on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, the 12th and the 13th. So if it can be, like you said, well before the 13th, well, that's a general term. I don't live by those, and you shouldn't either.
Well, the graphic will be done.
Okay. So when you said the graphic will be done, when you said well before July 13th, were you referring to the graphic?
The graphic.
Okay, now here's the problem with that, Steve. You got to catch yourself on this. So here, I'm trying to help you with this. Next steps was start a new graphic. We'll be sending to James's. Will be according to James' size requirements. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to have a confirmation that the size requirements are good, you might be looking at, he gets back to you maybe the next day, another day, then you got to fit it in, resize it, whatever.
It's layered. It's all built so it can be sized to any
So you got
size.
that figured out.
Yeah, that's all ready to be adjusted.
Okay. So
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually
more than just confirm, because if you're set on that, great. Find out, if I send it to you by this day, when do you have it up? When will you have it up? And that's managing the project to completion. The idea, like you said, you have on the description, design a pleasing graphic to be placed on the alternate homepage that links to the L&D site. Okay. If it's gonna be there, up on the alternate homepage and it's linking, if that's the project, then your deadline delivery needs to be a completion of that description, not just a graphic being done and sent to James. So, otherwise, and again, this is like with any project. If I were to say, hey, so when's the alternate site going to have this on there? Now, I'm going to have you pause, stop right there. Don't make it another project. It's not another project. It's a task within the project. You don't need another item, another line item. So making the graphic and then putting it on the site, James is doing that.
I'm making the graphic.
Right.
Yeah.
You're making the graphic, putting it on the site, James is doing that.
Right.
But you're managing the completion of.
Sure.
You make a beautiful graphic, but it doesn't go up, and you don't follow up with him to confirm that it's up. And then when it's up, if you don't confirm that the link actually works, the project's not done.
Sure.
So the whole project is really design a pleasing graphic to be placed on the alternate homepage. So it's got to be placed. That links to the L&D site. It's worded fine for me, but understand what your project is. So I made a beautiful graphic. Was it placed? Does it work? And by when is all that going to be done in forecasting? So that being the project, if July 13th is your due date for having the graphic done, and I now assume, and to James, when will the description be complete? See what I mean?
Right.
Be very, very concise and careful. Be clear with Honey Badg and everything else. And this is a clear, easy, simple example. What you describe, what is within scope, your deadline includes. If it doesn't, you need to chop it down.
Right.
Okay, so kind of like with, well, we'll get to that if it applies. But the project is when it's done and serving. So yeah, and you did the next steps, perfect. Reach out to James on size requirement. Again, if you're sure on size requirement, the main thing you might want to do to determine, now, let me rephrase that. The thing you need to do to determine deadline, appropriate deadline, is confirm with James, hey James, when I get this graphic to you, on your end with everything on your plate, when can you have it up so that I can then test to see that the link works?
Right.
And he'll give you a timeline, and then all you know is on that day it should be done. That way you know that on that day you're going to test the link. When you go to test the link, if that graphic isn't up, you can follow up with it. This is all the project management factor.
Sure.
So on where it says next steps 7/6/13, put on there, confirm with James when he'll have it up on the side. You're talking about size requirement. And by the way, if I get this to you by the 11th, when can you have it up? And if he goes, man, I'm going to be out that week, and you didn't know it, you might say, oh crap, what if I were to get it to you, if I can make it work, what if I get it to you on Friday before, which would be this Friday the 8th. What if I get to the 8th? Well, see, you'd have to get it to me in the morning, but I can make that work. Great. So that's managing the project to
Sure.
completion. And if you, looking at your project task list, if you go, I can't get it to you before then. Now, speed, pause. This is what we're talking about. If you have this information here when you're having these discussions, if he says, man, I'm gonna be out of town, and you just didn't know that, okay, no harm or foul. Now it's time to manage it. You need to be able to glance and look and see, can I fit in that last hour I needed on that graphic to get it to James by that morning so he can get it on there? Who knows, he might fail. He might have a pop-up and then it fails, but you're doing what you can.
Right.
here's the biggie. This also helps determine things like this along the way as you're developing stuff. Do I need to just reduce the quality to meet the timeline? It's always time, quality, cost.
Right.
That's the trifecta we're always playing in.
Right.
So you always have to do that.
Sure.
Confirm on the time. Yeah. When he can have it up on the Ultranet site based on when you give it to him.
Sure.
And that's the shift factor, if it's shiftable at all on your side.
Right.
All right. Now that doesn't apply to Honey Badger because we're not dealing with deadlines on them yet. Everything you and I have worked on, that's where the communication factor has been needed and hasn't taken place. So when you see things like that, or you're projecting full completion of stuff, that's how to do it.
Sure.
Okay, so tell me, is that new to you, or more clear than ever before, or
Well,
you knew that?
Yeah, we're
we're
doing
doing it.
We're doing good.
No. That's not answering my question. Was
It's-
that new to you?
No, it's not new to me.
Okay. Then, do you see how what was it, an error in using the tracker? Because in everything you told me and what was in the tracker tells me your focus was, despite the description, your focus was, deadline is make the graphic. And so, based on what you presented to me is that the stop of the story? Hence, I made questions and suggestions. Has your intention been to provide the graphic and then see the project all the way through to he did put it up?
The intention was just to get the graphic scheduled, get a deadline for the graphic, and then to go to the next step from there.
Okay, the next step from there would, in your mind, been another project?
Would have just get it delivered to James.
Okay.
So like get it done by the 13th, and then that would be the day that I deliver it to James.
Okay. That makes sense to me. That falls short of what the task assignment was. So now we've corrected it.
Sure.
Because remember, you're making beautiful projects, beautiful graphics. You want to make sure that it goes out and hits the World Wide Web of UPI.
Oh, sure.
So your project, as stated in the description, includes have it be linked to the LD site, serve the purpose for which you built it for.
Sure.
That's the entire project.
Sure.
That's not another project. That's part of it. Okay. Cool. Gallagher.
Gallagher, that's all been sent out last week. Let's go back up here. Okay, the harassment. That's all been that was done by the 30th. People are already taking the course. Gallagher had a couple of glitches. And yesterday, Matt talked with him about the last glitch. There was, out of almost 200 leaders, there was about 10 that could not get into the class. And it was a problem on Gallagher's side. And so all that's been smoothed out. I'm going to send out, there's a couple more people that had questions this morning, and I'll be sending them replies today on how to get into the course, but that's all been taken care of. So the harassment assignments have been sent out. People are taking the class.
Okay. Well done. Good job partnering with Matt. Now that the project is done and you got these residual things, June 30 was the deadline. Here we are on July 6th. Have you communicated to John at all that, hey John, you're the requester on this thing. You're a stakeholder on this thing. Well, you should be a stakeholder, but okay. by the way, these can be on all your projects as I've seen it. This is something I want to bring up, is how you're utilizing this thing. I had different columns
Yeah, I
for
just
all these things.
I put them in there just so I could get
You did it
everything
this way.
get everything on the screen.
That's fine. But submitted by, the request was submitted to you by who? Not you.
John, that's just a typo.
Okay, well, hold on just a second. Because what I'm going to point out, you'll find is there's a pattern among all your projects, but yet there's inconsistencies. So, for example, this one, who submitted this one, designed to the L&D side.
Well, that's just the same mistake there. Just
Okay, so what I'm trying to point out is, as you use this, because you said yourself, and we've talked about, you said, oh yeah, I see, this would be great to keep track of. If you or I are out, who do you contact? It's also a reminder, like Honey Badger, you probably won't forget it's Kendall and Rudy, but what if they list somebody else or someone else comes involved? What if there's a long list of people, like on this LMS project I'm on?
what might have happened is it got scrunched. Let's see what happened here.
No, that's not what I saw.
Yeah, it's easy to crack there. Just a little.
So here's, okay, just stop and listen for a second. On any one of these, area training is, where's the training going to be applied? It's not going to be applied to Jordan, Jason, James. This training, the L&D, this is to inform. You can even put all leaders throughout all of UPI, even internationally. That's that one. This one, where's the area of training? Diversity, you can say, good. Area of training is UPI, John to Jace to Steve. I don't understand this part. It's, and you just put leaders from, what you doing?
I just trying to see if it was squashed in there. See, it was squashed.
Okay, there you go.
I squashed it and didn't realize I did.
Okay, that makes sense then. So area needed, you got
I'm
this
just
one.
trying
Good.
to get everything on the screen.
Good. Submitted by. Now submitted, this project request, this project that you're tracking was submitted by whom? And this is so that you know when it's done, or when there's issues that are going to be put in the yellow or whatever, this is the person or peoples that you respond to. So like, you have an opportunity now to me and John, it wasn't submitted to yourself. There are some things I submit to myself when it's a project that I conjured on my own. Okay, and John will tell you, left and right, I do stuff without him ever having to ask. So, and when you have time, you may take something on like that, and you say, hey Jason, I want to do something like this, we just go hot dog and do it. Submit it to self. Submitted by whom? Those are the people that now you have an opportunity to send that email out. Whenever your deadline was, oh, it's off the grid now, it's okay. June 30th. And say, hey, today's June 30th. You requested this to be done by this date. All has been provided, and you don't need to give them all this. You say, all is out. Yeah, there's a couple of glitches. Gallagher failed us completely for a day or two. But everybody but 10 or so is being taken care of. Let me know if you have any questions. It's a report back. Your stakeholders will sometimes request during a project, hey, just let me know how it's going. Like Irwin on this LMS project, he has said, give me a monthly update. And if something's coming up, let me know. If something's needed, let me know. And so we report back to him, and there's a list of other people. Hey guys, here's just our status. Keep in mind this is what's coming up. There you go, and everybody knows. Every staff meeting, John asks, what's going on, how are things going? And quite often he'll say, Jace, where are we on that LMS? He wants to know, he's a stakeholder. So submission is never to yourself, it's to the person who submitted to you, unless you conjured it. Like when I did the catalog. Owned by, it's owned by you.
Well, I just barely made the correction because it was scrunched.
Okay.
That's so it was correct in there.
Why? Scrunch it again and see how it goes.
Okay, owned by. Let's see when it was. When it
Scrunch
was.
it again and see if you're right. Scrunch it. See, John still would have been right there. Or owned by.
Okay.
Oh, you're right. That one up.
See.
You're right. So ownership is
yep,
you.
So it was correct. It was just scrunched.
Okay. It had John to Jace to Steve. And there's a case for that. Be clear. Who owns this thing? Where the buck stops where with this? And you got stakeholders, you got SMEs. Who owns this? John's not doing a part. I'm not doing a part. You might leverage us as subject matter experts. You own it. Stakeholders, yes. SME, yes. John, Jace, Matt, whatever. You don't need to do it now. How to deliver it? Gallagher, e-learning modules, e-learning module, whatever. So go to let's do another one. Pick any one. Go to your projects that are in play. So right there. So submitted by, so we're not scrunched anymore. This is the Coaching for Success. John and Jason Steve. Again, you don't submit to yourself, but you're the owner, good. Stakeholders, good. SME, who's your SME on this thing? You got it right here.
Yeah.
So do you know Coaching for Success content? Are you going to be developing content from your own intellect and experience and research? Or are you going to be taking what John provides?
I'm the one that's taken on the project to find all the information.
Oh.
Yeah.
But so you just answered the question. You're taking on the project to find all the information and package it. Who's your sources for information? Your subject matter expert, John.
Right.
Am I?
No.
No, you're not utilizing me. If that changes, then you change it. How to deliver, that's the tournament. Good. Go to the next one. Honey Badger production, that's where it's needed. Good. Submitted by Kendall. Good. Owned by you. Good. Stakeholder, Kendall Steve. Is Rudy one?
Yeah. Kendall included him a couple of weeks ago. Let's see.
He might be a subject matter expert as well. If you mentioned another guy. You don't have to list everybody. If somebody like Ann and Cassie, it says here they're to explain the intricacies of how it works. These are going to be your subject matter experts.
Yeah. Well, they've been assigned to other projects now.
Okay. So again, you're managing your project. This is your summarized story of what's going on the project. So even though they're here, throw them in here because again, if you were to get hit by a bus, I need to call, contact, email, and I'd email everybody. I'm not going to go through all this. I'm not.
Right.
Unless I'm taking it on or whatever. I'm going to contact everybody in here. List of contacts. I'm going to contact everybody and say, Steve's out for a while. So manage your stakeholders, your subject matter experts as you go.
Sure.
Go down to your PM project. Training is needed. UPI, product dev. It's just in the product development area. That's where the PMs are going to be working.
That's what. Let me get it there. That's what Ryan was first calling it. Man, why won't that stay there?
Right.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. That was kind of what was on the project charter that Ryan sent.
As the audience.
The area training is needed. UPI. He had on their product development, but it's for new project managers.
And everything you do, make sure it's clear to you so that when you're asked questions or when you review, like you have a few, don't scroll down to it, but there's a few projects that have been placed on hold. They've been placed on hold for how long now? Months. when they call and say, hey, let's get this going, you should be able to pull those up, read within 5 minutes the summary and go, okay, I know who to contact. Guys, this is alive and well again, we're kicking this out, you're gonna be getting this. Or we need you again, get this on your calendar, we're gonna start next week. Whatever. This thing should serve you easy. Submitted by Ryan, owned by you, stakeholders, good. Add, subtract, whatever you need to do. Good. Go to your next one. Right there.
Project management.
Yeah, right there. So areas needed, alternate homepage. Yep, it's all UPI. I submitted it, you own it. Stakeholder. UPI is not a stakeholder of this project. They're a recipient. That's where it's needed. So what I'm trying to do is help you understand in instructional design, you need to have a clear understanding of who each of these roles, what each of these roles are,
Sure.
therefore who fits in. Subject matter expert on the graphic, you have James Blackwood as well. So it's you and James doing this.
Let's see, graphic.
Well, the reason why you didn't have that yet is because you were just thinking on graphic. Now this is where your error was, I'm not gonna belabor it.
Well, fine tuning it then.
It's, what?
Fine tuning it.
Yeah, it needs to be fine tuned so that there's not a grave error.
Right.
If your error was, if you did what you thought, which was just make the graphic and send it to James, it might sit for a while. He might forget.
True.
People are prone to error too.
True.
So that could be a grave mistake.
Sure.
Grave as in the business is going to stop? No. But the beauty of the project that you make and the time that you put into it and expectations of yourself, me, the last thing you would want like that is for me or anybody to come to you and say, hey, where's the link? And you go, I sent it to James. What's the next comment or question from my mouth or anybody's? You say, I sent it to James. And I'd say, what?
Where is it?
Yeah. And you go, well, heck, I guess I better follow up with James.
Sure.
And see, the next comment that usually isn't said because it should be rhetorically known is, you should have followed up with it.
Right.
Include the things with your project. If you're going to do anything, if anything's ever going to hit your project list, you're going to ensure completion, implementation, and successful service, that it works. Otherwise, it's not 100%.
Sure.
So, okay. So, it's almost after the fact now, but James Blackwood, for history, now remember, this is going to go in your history of stuff too. Here's another reason another way this serves. I keep adding reasons to do this tool and to do it right. If ever there's a project next year and we say, you know what we ought to do? We got to get something on the internet homepage. And you go, yeah. Or I go, yeah, because it's your idea. Who was the guy we were working with on that? Who was it we worked on when we did that link to the L&D site? I don't know. I never trust my memory. And people change. And say, tell me right now, who are the stakeholders on, if I could remember. Hold on a second. Let's do this for fun. To belabor this benefit from doing this tool. Watch this. No, wrong one. Let's see. You're gonna know. That's fine. Who is the stakeholder on the CapEx finance project?
That's Van Tran.
Okay, and who else?
She's the main person.
Is there anybody else you were working with on that?
Van Tran.
Don't put.
It was submitted by her.
Okay, don't look. We're going by memory.
Stakeholders?
Mm-hmm. What about the dashboard for Van? Who are the stakeholders on that? Don't know.
It's Van Tran.
Okay, who else?
Well, I'm always involved. If I'm involved in the project, then it's going to be me too.
Yeah. You're not listed though. Don't know.
In the iDashboard stakeholder, it's right there.
I'm not trying. Are you looking at it?
Yeah.
I told you not to look. See? Play with me. I'm not trying to catch you. I'm trying to make the point that we don't remember all details. For example, now, and this is an opportunity to look at this.
Well, it's Van Tran.
Van Tran and team. Okay, and you just go, Jace, that doesn't mean anything. That'd be fine. That'd be fair. I don't know, though, because what we're talking about is you might want to list all your SMEs. I happen to know if they're doing the project like they had before, I'm looking at details and I don't see any to know, to check myself before possibly wrecking myself. When I talked with her, and then you and I talked with her, she was saying, we're going to need to do voiceovers, we're going to need to do recordings. And is that part of that still?
I haven't even heard from her for a couple of months.
Okay. Elements of future mod, compile and deliver voice records. Yes. See how quickly I can find that out because the information's there?
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. This is why this serves. So I asked you a question and you couldn't answer it, neither could I.
What?
I said, are there going to be voiceovers and everything in that? Voice recordings and stuff in that?
As of then, I don't know now.
Sure. It may change. Right. As of what everything, they might change it when they want to go forward with it. But the whole point at the time was to include PowerPoint, voice, where's the quizzes? It's in the quizzes and so forth. So the stakeholders, the SMEs were going to be those who would write the content for her. You don't need to know that if it's all Van, that's great.
Sure.
Who are you going to need to get with? And were there any other stakeholders? Not that I can think of. But the point I'm just trying to make is when something else comes up, or in a year from now, we decide, hey, let's make something like that one CapEx training that was done was so cool. Who was on that so we can get that and at least build off of that? You have a history of stuff and your contacts, if you have it. So, now, every time I'm pointing out something to correct what you're doing here, you're answering in the affirmative, which is great. But you're answering as if you knew that. And I think you might have known this stuff, but it's not being done.
What? Well, you asked the stakeholder and it's Van Tran.
No, okay, you're not understanding me. The general use of things, understanding the roles on a project, and filling in the data of who fills those roles because you understand the roles well. That's what you need to know, and that's what you need to do.
Okay.
And we've been talking about this tool since at least the first time we went over the project tracker, not introduced it, we went over it, was the 10th of March. And this still isn't being done in a way that serves you well.
What? What isn't being done?
Well, scroll up. Well, what we're talking about. What's good is, this is the first time that I'm seeing color code, according to the legend that you have over here, which is great.
Okay.
So, I'm also seeing percentages. We'll come to that in a second. But what I'm talking about is, and you made your changes, which is fine, because I told you early on.
Well, it was scrunched and it was thrown out of kilter.
Okay. So, now, that's a case for, okay, let me ask you this. How are you going to avoid that from happening again?
Not scrunching.
Okay. What if someone else opens it and it's scrunched on their screen?
I don't know how to answer that.
I do. There's a potential, now you changed it to work for you and I told you to do that.
Right.
There's a potential flaw of having I would hate to have opened it up like it was and contacted somebody to tell them that you're out sick and it's just going to be delayed.
True.
And they say, I'm not a stakeholder on this.
True.
I've talked with Steve, but I don't even know this. And now I'm making phone calls that I don't need to make and I'm looking stupid.
Right.
And you're potentially looking stupid because you don't have your data correct for me.
Right.
So,
what I could do is kind of go every other line.
okay, now stop. Stop. Think, Steve. Stop. It's changing the colors going to help avoid a scrunching, therefore a realignment. Now, if it's color coded, great, but it could go like this.
Right.
So,
I'm just kind of experimenting here.
okay, well, don't do it here. You might want to deal with it another time, because you've got other things to cover.
There.
Okay? Now, you can test that if you want. Now,
And I just did that because everything was getting so horizontal. Like it was, if doing it this way, I can bring it right up on my screen. I can see everything.
well, here's mine, Steve. It all fits on one screen. With extra space.
Yeah, but I added the recent history and the next steps, and that really helps out a lot.
Okay. I have the next steps. I don't have a recent history, but I have plenty of space.
Well, yeah, if you add a whole other column that wide, it'll start kicking it out. And I can shrink this down a little bit too.
Yeah, it could be shrunk. It could be
There.
changed. Now, you can't read it.
Right.
So, and again, Steve.
So you need to go back to kind of full screen almost.
You can do some things that you want, as long as it's not error prone and it serves. The main thing is, so see, now we're getting into details, which is important. Is this going to be skewed? You know how people will send you something, and for you it opens up showing like this, or like this, and you got to change it.
Right.
That can happen. Separate columns or separate fields can help ensure that that does not happen. Now, if they have to do what you do, expand, contrast, that's fine. But in expanding, contrasting, everything stays where it needs to stay. It just becomes magnified or not.
Right.
If it becomes scrunched and columns don't stay, you're going to have an issue. See, here I was asking you questions, and in some cases, there wasn't an error. In other cases, you didn't have the right people in the right place with the roles. So, something to think about.
Yeah.
All right. So, what you'll want to do, make a note to yourself to go back through this thing and make certain that the right roles, the right people are assigned to the right roles.
Yeah.
And in many of these you have that. There's been an inconsistency. Especially in the submitted by, that was the first thing that popped out, so I knew to bring this up, and as we looked at it more, I saw the other details.
Yeah, just